I want to draw attention to an encouraging development in an area that really needs just tons of prayer and action. But earlier this week, the FBI announced that law enforcement last month rescued more than 200 sex trafficking victims across the country as part of Operation Cross Country, which is now in its 13th year. And while this is an area that certainly we can applaud the FBI, but we all know they didn't do it by themselves. There's a lot of cooperation involved in an operation like this. And thankfully, there were a number of groups out there fighting to rid the world of sexual abuse and exploitation. And one of my guests is one of those type of people. Joining me now is Patrick Trueman. He's the president of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Patrick, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thank you very much, Jody. Good to be here.
Well, thank you. All right, let's start off with Operation Cross Country. Tell us more about that operation.
Well, annually, the FBI does these raids. It's a lot of preparation that goes into it. And it's a very good thing, but I have a couple of concerns about it. Not to take anything away from those involved in rescuing the victims, but I don't see us making any progress. Congress passed the first anti-trafficking bill in 2001, and you could hardly argue that things have gotten better since then, despite the work of the FBI and others. And that's because, for the most part, we don't address the root causes, the demand for trafficking victims. Why is there a demand? And that demand is created by a couple of factors. Pornography. Children today are raised on pornography, and as they get to be young men, after they see the pornography, they're going out and visiting prostituted women, most of whom are trafficked women. And they're watching all manner of pornography. They may not start with child pornography, but many of them land on that. They get attracted to it, and they want child victims. And child victims are very available on these social platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find children there to groom and have sex with. And then what happens to those children? They are traded off to others, trafficked, maybe taken away from their parents. Some of those children are still living at home, still going to school, but in their off time, they're being trafficked. So we have to address root causes, such as pornography, such as these platforms like Instagram and Facebook and the others. Congress years ago passed the Communications Decency Act and gave immunity to all these platforms for material that they don't put on their platform. So if someone is trafficking on their site, like Twitter said in a lawsuit, we're not responsible, even though we know it goes on. Well, they could just turn that off or kick those people off who are trafficking. But this immunity has to be challenged. Congress will do nothing about it. But we have to get the courts to do something about it. And thankfully, we've got a wonderful case going to the Supreme Court right now on behalf of 2 children who were trafficked on Twitter, hoping to erase that immunity for tech companies.
Wow. Well, I think also something that's helping right now is the recently released movie, The Sound of Freedom, of course, is covering the sex trafficking issue, particularly in South America. And, while the film has certainly ignited all sorts of conversations, I had a text from someone just today that just saw the movie yesterday. And, it's having an impact. It is creating conversations and all this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, every concerned citizen can play a role in making a difference. So talk about that real quickly, both from the perspective of what your organization does and what our viewers and listeners can do to be part of the solution.
Well, when you know there's a trafficked child, you have to do all you can to make sure it doesn't happen to another child, not just rescue that one child and rest on your laurels. So that's what we do. We have a mass scale prevention program underway. And that program you can find on our website, endsexualexploitation.org. But essentially what we are doing is killing demand for trafficking by killing the factors that cause demand. And you need to read up on that at that website. But for example, Instagram, I mentioned them twice here. We interviewed several girls at a site in Washington, D.C., where they rescue child victims of sex trafficking, which goes on, of course, in our country all over. But we interviewed those girls to find out how did they get trafficked? Every one of them was trafficked on Instagram. And that's a site used by so many.
We got about 20 seconds.
So I would just encourage you to check into our website, endsexualexploitation.org, and you'll see how to prevent this very thing from happening.
Well, Patrick Trueman, I want to thank you and your incredible organization, the National Center for Sexual Exploitation, for stepping into an ugly arena and making a difference. And I encourage our listeners to check out your organization and learn how they can be more engaged as well. Thank you for joining us this evening on Washington Watch.
Thank you.